1.6 million in the latest estimates suffer from this disease, and yet 80+% of the people who have this condition don't even know they have it. They're undiagnosed and they're untreated.
Wow.
And it can be devastating when you think about it. But basically what sleep apnea is when we sleep and our body starts to relax, in many people, over 50 million Americans, the tissues and the muscles in their throat start to collapse and airway gets restricted, and to the point where no air or very little air flows into the lungs and your oxygen in your blood drops.
Mm-hmm.
It's essentially like being suffocated multiple times an hour. And someone with severe sleep apnea, it's not uncommon for them to stop breathing 20, 50, 100 times an hour. And as you can imagine, your blood oxygen level drops, your brain, and rightfully so, freaks out a little bit.
Yeah.
It thinks it's being suffocated, and so it jolts you awake, but usually not awake enough to know that you're awake, just awake enough to take a breath.
Mm-hmm.
And imagine if that's happening to you 20, 30, 100 times an hour, you never, ever get a restful night's sleep. That leads to short-term problems with things like memory, just being chronically tired, so your risk of getting into a car accident is higher. But then long-term, the risk of heart disease, high blood pressure, arrhythmias like atrial fibrillation, even heart failure, obesity, diabetes, mental health disorders, dementia, Alzheimer's, even certain types of cancer can do worse if you sleep poorly. So that the health effects of poor sleep can be devastating, especially if you've got a condition like sleep apnea that can be easily treated.
And like you said, imagine if it's 50, 100 times that through the night that is happening. And then, like you said, for the people that are undiagnosed or untreated, okay, so you're talking 100 times a night, every night, for years. It's something that is a progression that over time, like you said, as you finished with, some of the, I guess you could call them symptoms, or just some of the side effects of not being able to have the sleep, or being able to continuously breathe enough to get the amount of oxygen that's necessary for your body not to, as so to speak, I like how you put that, kind of like freak out in a way that it jolts you a little bit awake. That's I think when you say that, I think a lot of people are thinking of their friends or loved ones who snore, and then all of a sudden there's silence for about 15 seconds, and then all of a sudden there's a giant noise, and that's kind of what that is. And with that idea, with it being National Sleep Awareness Week, the idea is to get that information out there, and then also look to get treated.
Absolutely, and you describe it perfectly. When your bed partner or someone who's witnessing your sleep notices that you stop breathing, that's one of the top ways that people get referred to their doctor, and that's where it really starts, a conversation with your doctor. If you have any concerns about your sleep, you've had a loved one or someone who's witnessed you stop breathing while you sleep, or you wake up with some common symptoms like headaches when you wake up, dry mouth, being covered in sweat, because again, when your brain sends that adrenaline rush through your body, your heart rate spikes, your blood pressure goes up, and a lot of people will sweat at night when that happens. And then just feeling chronically tired. If you're the kind of person who, when you stop at a stoplight, you kind of doze off a little bit, or while you're watching TV, you doze off a little bit, you may have a chronic tiredness related to poor sleep. So you're right. Those are the things you need to know and discuss with your doctor. And then be aware of the treatment options if you have a condition like sleep apnea, which is very easily treated.
Absolutely. And what are some of these ideas of treatment or new treatments of what's coming up out there to once you get diagnosed to kind of treat this?
Sure. Well, for 30 years since the treatment for sleep apnea was first introduced 3 decades ago, the gold standard treatment is still what we call CPAP. It stands for continuous positive airway pressure. Mm-hmm. Now, 30 years ago, these devices were big and loud and bulky and may have not been as comfortable. But in today's day and age, like you said, the new advancements, the devices like the ones that my company ResMed makes are very small, modern, quiet. I mean, they're no more noisy than the sound of air blowing through the air vent in your air conditioning system. And they're connected to the internet. Our devices actually have an app associated with them, so you can check on your therapy. Even your physician can monitor your therapy remotely. And then the masks have become extremely small and comfortable. So so I'm a sleep apnea sufferer. The mask I wear every night is about the size of my pinky, and it just lays underneath my nostrils, kind of like it's called a nasal pillow. It's just a little pillow that sits under my nostrils so that I can breathe. It's basically a gentle stream of air that keeps my throat open. And I like it because it's comfortable, and I wake up rested every morning. My wife loves it because now she can sleep. I'm not snoring in her ear. My ribs are a little less bruised because there's less elbows flying across the bed. But more importantly, I'm not going to crash my car the next morning because I'm falling asleep while I drive, or I'm not going to have the increased risk for heart disease or cancer or Alzheimer's and the other things that poor sleep, especially driven by sleep apnea, can cause.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's funny that we're talking about this. I had a client this past weekend who told me that he went and not necessarily treated for it yet, but he'd been having some issues, and he went to a sleep center to get diagnosed. And what they had done was they had put him in an opportunity to be evaluated with certain mechanisms that were attached to within his with his head and everything, but gave him a comfortable area to allow him to try to sleep for about 6 hours or so they could monitor and see just exactly what the expectations are of his body as he was sleeping. And he told me that he slept really good for what was about 6.5 hours. And what they said is they got enough of the information necessary, but what was fascinating was, like you said, it was about 65 times that he completely stopped breathing, from 10 to as long as 20 seconds.
Wow. Yeah, it's not uncommon. Someone with moderate sleep apnea stops breathing 15 times an hour.
Wow.
Yeah, and there are people with severe cases where it can be 100 or more times an hour that they stop breathing. So just imagine you're being suffocated multiple times an hour every night while you sleep. That's what's happening, and that's why it's so important, if you have any of the symptoms or any of those concerns, to talk with your doctor.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as you're saying, this is part of, like we talk about with National Sleep Awareness Week, these are the opportunities to get this information out there, to let people understand that if you do have a loved one that's saying, yeah, they snore, or yeah, I got it, like you said, poke them with the elbow every now and then, that this may result in something that they want to get looked at, maybe want to get tested, because there is possible treatment ideas out there to do something as simple as getting them a better night's sleep that would in turn have just a better productive day altogether.
Absolutely. A better productive day and decreased risk for the devastating health consequences that can happen 10, 20 years down the road.
Yes, absolutely. And it is tough to think that, man, what you think is doing is giving the body an opportunity to rest. And, when people say that they are tired, it's one thing when you talk in conversation about how people did sleep and how their day-to-day goes, because you know as well as I do that when most people get to about a Wednesday, Thursday, it's tough. And that's why so many people look forward to a Friday, because they know they get to sleep in that Saturday morning. Well, if this has been going on all week with the idea of not being able to sleep to their full potential, then, like you said, overall health concerns come along with it, and even just the day-to-day stuff becomes that much more difficult. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely, yes.
Well, thank you very much, partner. We're just about out of time. Doctor, it was a pleasure talking to you. Dr. Carl Nunez, medical doctor, explaining how the inefficient sleep can lead to certain diseases and other life-threatening issues, and why we should recognize that and pay attention to it. Thank you very much, Doctor.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. You have a great day and sleep well. Excellent. There we go. So with that, National Sleep Awareness Week, the idea of why sleep is so critical and a part of staying healthy. And that's the obvious part, but what's not obvious, as like the doctor was saying, is what's necessary to understand if you're getting a good night's sleep or not. There you go. We're going to take a short little break, and when we come back, we'll touch on just a little bit of everything before the top of the 9 o'clock hour. And at the 9 o'clock hour, stay tuned for Veterans News this Thursday, March 5th. You're listening to 96.3 FM, 1370 AM, The Source. And we're back after this.
WOCA.
Well, hello there. Danny Boy here, and I've been suffering from some bad luck lately. I've been sick and weak, and I've even been falling, don't you know? But now I've got to look at the Irish. I'm choosing Palm Garden for my rehab. I may not find a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, but I'm lucky to be getting my health back with a wee bit of help from Palm Garden, what gets me home fast. Really fast. Visit Palm Garden, located at the corner of Southwest 27th Avenue and 34th Street, right here in Ocala, don't you know?
Very warm with considerable cloudiness this afternoon. Breezy with a thunderstorm around, high 87 to 90. Tonight, cloudy most of the time. A thunderstorm in spots, low 63. Tomorrow, pleasant with some sunshine, high 76 to 81. Saturday, sunshine and cool, high 66 to 60.